Welcome back, I'm Music by Lucas. I'm a producer and DJ, and today I'm gonna be listening to some of your demos. And I don't always get to do videos like this, but I do give feedback on demos every day to members of our online music school. If you want more info on that, I always put it below. This first one is called Feels, and it's by Who Am I? Cool first one to listen to. I think it has a lot of potential. I think the first drop goes a little bit too long. I think you could cut that that last 8 bars of the first drop, because it goes 24 bars right now, and sometimes what's better, instead of having a breakdown on the end of your first drop, is to actually move that energy into the second break. So you can start the second break with that 4 on the floor kick, cut some of the high frequencies, keep that energy going, and start to build the momentum into the second drop so that you can kind of keep the energy going and keep people pumped for the song and not have that feeling like the track is getting repetitive. Also, I think in the second 8 bars of the drop, so before the breakdown, I think you should do more than just lift the octave on the lead. I think you could potentially have some more ear candy, maybe some growl effects, maybe some more percussion, maybe some cool, just kind of interesting stuff to spice it up even more. And then I think this track definitely has potential to get supported by a lot of big DJs and get signed, so good work. I also like your brand so far with your picture, your mask, the lines over the face. I think it's really cool. Just make sure to also link your Instagram on your SoundCloud profile as well, so you can start growing your following there too. This song is super sick. I love it. It has like the future trance vibe to it. I think you could potentially make it even more interesting. I'd like to hear some like more automation on the main lead, like with the reverb, the cutoff, the filter. Just make it kind of come alive a little bit more, so it's not just the same amount of energy with that lead the whole time. I also really like the roll effect that you do at the end on the melody. I think you should do that maybe a little bit more often. And the percussion, I would like to hear that be a little bit louder in the mix. Just some of the stuff needs to come out a bit more and be more alive, be a bit more stereo, be a bit bigger, and I think this track has a lot of potential, and it's definitely something I would support. Was The One by Black Mass, and I thought it was really cool so far. I like the vibe and the emotion. I think it'd be even better if the vocals came back on the second half of the drop. Also, the vocals should be pushed even harder. Maybe you could use the plugin CLA Vocals by Waves. It works really well. You just drop a preset on there. It takes care of the limiting, compression, echo, reverb, all kinds of stuff for you, and it gives like a really crispy sound, so it pops out in front of the mix. And then besides that, the lead kind of sounds a bit thin and small. I feel like it could be a bit bigger and a bit more like you have it more layered. It sounds just kind of like one lead. Also, just like the melody layers, I feel like it could have a bit more depth to it, but definitely the vibe is there. I see what you're going for, and I like it so far, so keep it up. Also, I went over to your Instagram because I saw the link on your SoundCloud, and I think it looks cool. I know you don't have any posts yet, but I liked your bio about how you say 2 guys who love making future house music. I think you should update your profile picture to have you guys, so it goes more with the bio, and I think it'd be more interesting than just having your logo. real, this song is cool so far. Really cool vibe, really deep. I like songs like that a lot. I think that it has some potential to have some extra sounds in the drop that maybe have a little bit more high frequencies that can come in and out, a little bit more effects, and also to have more of the percussion in the mix. So basically it's like a tip that Kashmir always says is to give the track something that it already doesn't have. So you already have a lot of deep sounds, you already have a lot of bass, you got a, you know, like a nice kick in there, you have a deep vocal even that's like pitched down. So what can you add to the track that adds something else the track doesn't have? Probably some kind of like organic sounding element, maybe a string or something that you can put in the higher frequencies. And then, like I said, it doesn't have much higher frequencies right now from the percussion. They're not really coming out yet. So that's something else you can add as well to make it more interesting. But I like it so far. Keep it up. Alright, this one is cool so far. It just needs a little bit more interesting sound design. The lead is just kind of too basic right now. It doesn't really like come alive or sound very interesting yet. Also, the second drop kind of just loops what the first drop is already doing, so maybe you could try something a little bit different there. And then lastly, I would try to add a vocal into the track, or a vocal chop, or some kind of vocal element to add something organic there to make it more catchy, a little bit more professional sounding. But I think the vibe and the idea of the track is there. It just needs a little bit of work at this point. And then checking out your SoundCloud, make sure again that you're listing your social links there. And then I would just try to upgrade your social banners and some of your graphics just a little bit more so they look a little bit more clear and not kind of pixelated like they are right now. I really like this one by Galafunk. I think it has a super interesting and unique vibe, but what I would do to make it even better is, again, start automating the cutoff on your filter, on your reverb, and just try to make those leads, those melodies come alive a little bit more. Have them open up at the end of every like 4-bar loop, every 8-bar loop, so they get a little bit bigger, and it'll just make it sound a bit more interesting, because right now it kind of just loops, and it could just do so much more. It could, like, you know, if it was like a book, it could be like coming off the page, just like with the song. Like, you want to take someone on a journey, like you really want to make them feel something for you. That's how, as an artist, you make people remember you, remember your name, look you up, and want to follow you and want to be your fan. Like, you can do even more with your music. So that's something that I would do. But yeah, this is something that I would support. And also, if you guys want to see the tracks that I support, I always post like an entire playlist of all the unsigned and signed tracks that I support every week on Instagram. And we're also starting a radio show in January, so you can look out for that as well. This one too, again, another one that has kind of like the future trance kind of vibe that I really love. I think that you did a good job at making this one come alive a little bit. You automated the cutoff, you did some cool stuff like that, but I think the vocal gets a little bit lost in this one if you check it out in the break. So again, maybe CLA vocals is a really good idea for you to use that plugin. Really make sure that when the vocal is there, that the vocal is the focus. When you have a vocal on the drop, it's okay if it's a little bit more in the background. It doesn't necessarily need to be the focus, because on the drop, your melody is more of your focus typically, but on your break, you definitely want to have the vocal be the focus, even if that means cutting off some of the high frequencies on your melody element so that the vocal pops out more. Besides that, I would try to add a little bit more bass on the track so it has a little bit more depth, because it is a deep track, so make sure you don't miss that, but I think it's really cool so far. Alright, so I just checked this one out by D Steel and D Bobby, Blame on Me, and I think the vibe is there. So it does have like a cool commercial vibe, but the mix just isn't quite there yet. One thing I do want to point out to you guys is that if you look at the sound wave on SoundCloud, it's really just flat and level the entire time. Ideally, if you look like as a reference at some bigger tracks on SoundCloud, some big sign tracks, you'll notice that the sound wave kind of looks smaller, shorter for the breaks, and then louder, bigger on the drops. That is kind of like what you want to go for, because really the point should be that you're kind of getting that energy and that excitement to the drop, and on the drop is when it's the biggest. That's the payoff for the listener. That's the point where they get to hear it in its full force. Also, the kick in this track is there kind of like the entire time, and that can be an issue because, again, if you're talking about having that drop be the focus, having that drop be the payoff, you want to have that kick on the drop as like the first time the listener really hears it. You can have the kick in the break, but you don't want to have it there like the entire time, because you're kind of giving it away. You want to save a little bit for that drop so you can really have people start to get excited when it hits. But yeah, so keep it up, work on the mix a little bit more, and I think it has potential. But from a branding standpoint, everything looks really good on your SoundCloud. You have a really nice banner, professional profile picture, all your socials are laid out, all your contact is laid out, so that's looking good. Wow, this is really, really sick. I love this track. Full support on this one. I think it is basically as good as it's gonna get. I mean, it sounds really nice. The only thing, and this is just my opinion, would be adding a little bit more percussion to pick it up on the second half of your drops. But I mean, you really, again, you're doing what we talked about earlier in one of the other demos, which is taking the listener on a journey. You're leaving no stone unturned. You're like completely just like, I want to dive into this track, like my imagination's going crazy. This is kind of really what you want to go for. Also, it goes very well with your branding, with the picture, because it's kind of psychedelic, kind of interesting. Like that's what the song makes you feel. So I think all together, it works really well. I even like your name with the emoji with the head blown, because again, it goes with the vibe of your music. And you have all your socials listed. Everything looks good. Sick track. see what you're going for with this track. I just don't think that the vocal sounds really there yet. It doesn't sound completely professional. And also when the drop hits, it doesn't quite go with the build-up. Like they sound like they're kind of like two different songs at this point. And then on the drop, I think your leads, like the sound isn't very powerful. So it's not very energetic. But yeah, I think if you worked on trying to make the track tell one story instead of kind of switching up and making sure everything's on the same key, so that might mean you have to tease the drop a little bit on the buildup, like bring in some of those, that little bit of that drop melody on the buildup, because that's one of the easiest ways to make everything kind of tie together and to make sure and check if the same melody from the drop goes with the buildup, so that way you know if it's all telling one story. So just try to work on that a bit more, and I think it's going to be even better.
Done drank all night, acted all alright, had no need to fight tonight. Done drank all night, acted all alright, had no need to fight tonight.
This track is really nice so far. I see also that you already had tracks supported by me and other Hexagon artists. It's cool that you put that there in the description of the song. It immediately like lets people know your achievements, which I think is really important, and you earn them, so why not display them? With this track in particular, I think that it could be even bigger though, and there's points in the track where you have like no percussion or no kind of groove going on for a long period, and you really need to have that there, because if you really want DJs to play your tracks and support your tracks, they need to be able to make sure that when they play them, everyone's going to be able to dance to them. People aren't going to like take a break and go get a drink and leave the dance floor. So, and that they're easy to mix in and out. So that's why you got to keep a little bit of rhythm. That's why in a lot of future house songs you hear like the tracks start off with a snap or like a little cymbal or some kind of groove element to keep that rhythm going. And it's okay to have moments in the track where you don't have any percussion, just not like really long. Like if it's longer than 8 bars, I think it starts to get a little bit too long without any kind of groove. And then on your drop, just try to make the sounds a little bit bigger, a little bit fatter, because they're still a little bit tame for the vibe that I think you're going for with the track, but I really like it so far, so keep it up.
Please don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time.
I really like this track. I think that this is something that I would support. Great progressive vibe, very uplifting. It's a really nice vocal too, and I like your description of your track. You got the lyrics in there, so like you set the whole thing up really nice. I think your vocal could actually pop out in the mix a little bit more. So again, maybe like CLA vocals or just some more vocal processing to make it stand out just a bit more. And then on your drop, I feel like the leads are still just a little bit thin, and you could have a little bit more of an exciting bass line, maybe like an ARP in there, something that had a little bit more, that brings the track alive more, something like, you know, instead of just like because it just kind of relaxes the track when you have it the way you do right now, when that drop is so like inspiring. It should really like lift you up and make you want to just, you know, fist pump when the DJ's playing it. But I really like what you have so far, and I think you did a really good job, so keep it up. Awesome stuff. That was a lot of fun checking out your guys' demos today. Make sure to comment whatever one was your favorite, and I had an idea, which is to have Lauren do a feedback video too. So if you guys are down for that, comment that below as well. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you next week.